Five, four, three, two, one.
All right. Hello, willkommen, bienvenue, konnichiwa, ni hao, jambo, marhaba.
Hi.
What's hi?
I don't know. Finnish, maybe?
Fuck me. Welcome to the Armist Inquisition, episode 198 on Sunday the 5th of August. I'm Amish
Ben.
Hang on, it's not on.
You're Amish Phil.
5th of September.
Okay.
Yeah, new school year.
Yeah, I'm Amish Phil.
I'm Amish Ben still.
And I'm Amish Matt.
Oh, it's chaos.
Everything's under control. Situation normal.
We've got Kyle here from Conspiracy in the Force. Hello, Kyle.
Good afternoon. Well, good evening to you, gentlemen. How is everybody doing over there?
Good.
Yeah, fair to middling.
I'm good. Hello there.
I brought my face covering in case it made you guys feel more safe. If you want me to wear this throughout, I can.
I mean, it's odd. It has the opposite effect for me.
yeah. It is a little bit more threatening, isn't it? It's a little bit more dangerous.
Red is danger.
You can't catch the couth through Zoom, can you? Or is that going to be the new variant?
That's how midichlorians travel.
Let me check the CDC website real quick and see if there's any new updates on that. I'm sure there will be.
So, how's it going over there in the States? Pretty mental? Pretty mental by the looks of it from our side.
Yeah, I feel like it's always been mental, and it just has been ramping up over and over, more and more. People are crazy. Luckily, I've gotten hooked up with people like you guys and a lot of other great people on social media that we can all look at this stuff and laugh at it and totally understand how much of a clown world we're living in. But there's so many people that are so into it and so invested into all these crazy things that we should or shouldn't be doing right now. And it's just, it's total madness. You have to either laugh about it or cry about it. So I'm just going to laugh about it, I guess.
I've noticed that. I've been struggling over the last couple of weeks because I'm so immersed in the media messaging and looking at what people are what's being piped into people's houses, and it can get on top of you if you don't stop and just try and step back and have a laugh at it all.
Yeah, you need to unplug, man.
Right.
You do, yeah. Right. But I have to do this every fucking week, don't I? It's a problem. This show doesn't produce itself.
Yeah, it's hard to unplug when you're creating content because you always need to be plugged in and know what's going on because that's what other people are going to be wanting you to talk about. So it's very difficult, but it's you do have to unplug slightly, maybe like 1.3 minutes a day. That'll get you what you need.
It just and it just seems to grow as well. We started a Discord server a few weeks ago, and so that's like another thing that I'm checking every day. And it's like I seem to get rid of one and then pick up another.
You're our Petri dish.
What?
You're our Petri dish, Phil.
For what?
Just everything. We put you forward into the murk and the mire. And you collect the filth from the internet. See what grows.
And it is filth. I mean, Twitter is just a fucking cesspit. I don't know how you do quite a lot of tweeting, don't you?
I do a lot of tweeting, a lot of Instagram and stuff. And it's good and bad. Like so many people send me different videos and links and all kinds of stuff all the time. And I feel bad because there's just no way I can digest all this information because it's coming from all different angles. You could get 3 people sending you a video about one topic in a different angle or a different way to think about it. So I'm just like, some of it, I can't even get into and wrap my mind around it because it takes up so much time. And yeah, I appreciate what you're saying about the Discord. I used to be in a lot of Discord servers, 6 months to a year ago, and it was great and a lot of great info and a lot of great people and stuff. But you just go down this wormhole and it's a whole nother social media basically at that point. that you're just lost in it for hours and hours on end, and it's good and bad. So it's hard to pick and choose.
I mean, the other thing with things like Discord is it can quickly turn into echo chambers.
Yeah,
that's the other thing. I mean, in fact, one of our listeners has just set up a macroaggressions Discord.
Yes.
Charlie didn't have one.
Helen.
Oh, do you know Helen? Helen from Berkshire.
Yeah, I talk with her a little bit on Twitter every now and then. Yeah, I saw that she did that the other day, so that's awesome. I'll
It is
check
cool.
that out.
It's kind of soul destroying because we had ours up for like 4 weeks, and Charlie's already got like twice as many members as us.
Oh, he's a monster in this game. You guys have had Charlie on before?
Yeah, last year. Was it about this time last year? Maybe.
It was in the thick of it, wasn't it?
Yeah, we know Charlie.
He's incredible. You know, I give so much credit to him for, you know, the platform I have now, because if he wouldn't have brought me on his show, you know, several months ago, you know, I never would have been able to reach as many people as I have so far. So, you know, big props to him for throwing me out there, because I sent him a message. I'm like, hey, I think this might be a good topic for your show. Like, not even thinking he would like respond or anything. I mean, my God, he probably gets a zillion of these requests every now and then, right? And I was just like, hey, let's talk about Star Wars and totalitarian governments and this and that. And I'm just like waiting. And then I saw he responded back. He's like, let's fucking do it. I'm like, oh shit. Now I'm terrified. Now I actually got to get something. Now I got to get something ready. I'm like, damn it. Oh shit. Okay. All right. Well, here we go. So yeah, big credit to him. And he's a monster. I don't know how he does what he does, writing all the books, doing all the podcasts, owning his own company, going on every single person's podcast. Like, I have no idea. He might not be a human, but I want to think he's a human.
Don't out him as a reptile. Sleeper agent. You heard it here first. Oh, I can see a Twitter war coming.
Yeah, Charlie, I love you. Everything I said was a lie.
Holy joshing. Yeah, I think, let's not quite...
Execute order
69, dude!
We'll not do that just yet. You gave me a good excuse to bust out all the Star Wars sound bites that I've collected over the last few years since we've been doing this. But
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Bring them all out. I'm just going to try to say things that'll prompt quotes. So if what I'm saying doesn't make sense, it's because I'm just trying to feed into your soundboard.
When did you do you like have a first memory of when you first saw Star Wars?
Yeah, so it was so I was born in 1984, so I'm 36 years old now. Well, it's kind of funny. I was born in 1984, and we're basically living in 1984. It's, I don't know. I'm basically 0 years old. But so in mid 90s, you know, back when the VHS was a thing, and one of my friends in middle school gave me a copy of it, and over the weekend I watched them all, and I was just amazed and blown away. And you know, one of the things that always stuck with me, and it's not really one that you think would just like stick with you from the original movie, but it was kind of like a gory scene. It was when Obi-Wan sliced that dude's arm off in the cantina. For some reason, I kept thinking about this dude's severed arm. I'm like, man, maybe I need to go see a therapist or something. This is not something I should be thinking and dwelling about. But I was like, holy crap. Like, it just, like, this story just went there. I don't know if I had seen kind of violence like that in a kind of a kid's kind of movie before. So, but yeah, it just really hit home with me just about the whole, and it's a very basic story if you think about the original movie, right? Like, a kid goes from living out in the middle of nowhere, having a purpose and accomplishing something huge. And I think we can all, you know, put that into our own world and our own template on how that affects us. You know, I've always been kind of an introverted, kind of a quiet kind of kid, but like seeing this movie kind of made me realize that maybe there are larger things I can do out in the world, and not just kind of, you know, stay to myself. So, and I've definitely realized that a lot more over the past year or so, you know, with doing the podcast and everything, thinking like, you know, even though my personality is very kind of somewhat shy and introverted, and I'd rather kind of have time to myself, like, I think I have some things that other people might, it might help other people. It might be good for other people to see some of those perspectives. So from that aspect, it kind of helped me to kind of grow personally. And of course the story and the music and the characters, everything is just freaking amazing.
The music, I mean, the John Williams soundtrack it makes it for me.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
And the prequels as well, you know.
Yeah, and I was just talking about this the other day. The finale in Revenge of the Sith, where Obi-Wan and Anakin are fighting. In a normal like action type movie, you would hear some like thematic like action type music, like you would see in like Transformers or like all the Marvel movies. But like the music that John Williams chose was like this like a chorus, almost like an opera, right? So like it was basically saying that this was a tragic story. This isn't a fun action scene that you're just supposed to like watch, from the corner of your eye when you're doing something else. No, it's a very impactful scene in the movie, and he gave it that gravity with that operatic music and feel. So it felt less like an action adventure scene and more like a Greek tragedy, from thousands of years ago, which is an incredible feat. So yeah, I'm hugely into the music, and I don't know if you guys have seen any of these, but on YouTube they have a bunch of clips from the movies where they cut the music out altogether, and like you just watch the scene and you're like, it just doesn't have that oomph to it, that some of those dramatic strings and stuff bring into it. And and I consider it kind of like another character in the movie. And a podcast I listened to in the past would refer to that music as like the oxygen of Star Wars, because it really it gave those scenes, it gave those characters, it gave those moments an organic feel to it, that was really missing if you didn't have it in there. So it's a huge thing that I don't think enough people really think about and get into. And
it's there right from the start, right from the very first beat of the first movie, that first massive orchestra hit. Bing! Yeah. Yeah. It's like, and there's I'd imagine there's not many scenes where there isn't something going on in the background, music-wise, but I remember
one thing real quick on the music, the main title, and I listened to a breakdown of this. Now I'll send you the link if I can find it, but the actual notes in like the main Star Wars tale, like in the dun 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 dun, like the actual notes that are used in that in the progressions very closely align with like what a hero's journey is, because there's highs and there's lows, and then there's an equally immense high and an equal low, like in the actual notes themselves. So the fact that John Williams, he didn't just write this music, he actually thought about what the story was and wrote that into the actual notes of the music. Like when I first heard that, it gave me chills, and it blew my mind, because you knew this guy was on another level when it came to, music writing.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's completely unmatched, isn't he, when it comes to film scores?
Yeah, absolute genius.
Yeah. And you sort of hinted there about the Revenge of the Sith. There's a lot of dark moments in those films. I remember when the first time I saw the scene where he executes the younglings, old Anakin, on the old...
what have I done?
And it's like, I mean, that's proper dark for what is essentially a kid's teenager's film. Yeah, although it does, adults enjoy it because there's that nostalgic element. They remember seeing the original 3 films, but I mean, it's pretty heavy stuff to put on kids, isn't it? Seeing the little Jedi younglings getting executed.
It is, and you can kind of think about without like specific examples, just in our world, like the people who are most successful in entertainment and all kinds of stuff or business, like. They've done, or politics, especially, I would say politics, they've done terrible things, in their lives to get to the level they're at. And that was a specific showing of, to achieve. And that's the whole ironic part about that is the only reason he went down this path was to try to save his wife. Right. So he's like, hey, I need to save my wife, but let me go ahead and kill all these kids first. They don't matter. But as long as I can save my wife in the end, like if you think about it, comprehensively, it doesn't make sense. Why do you think you're going to be able to save your wife if your soul is so dark at this point? It doesn't. And in the end, he lost her anyways.
It's the old the ends justify the means.
And it also calls into question his return as a Force ghost in the Jedi. Return as a Jedi, doesn't it? I was just thinking about that, thinking, how fucking sick is that now? It never even sprung to my mind.
Have you seen those memes? It shows a bunch of memes of him as a Force ghost, and then it shows all the younglings as Force ghosts. Like, what the hell, man? Come on, dude. Why is he here?
Oh my God.
The thing that stuck in my mind is I can't remember you'll probably remember the name of the animal that he cuts open.
Tauntaun.
The tauntaun.
The tauntaun.
I thought they smell bad on the outside.
And then the intestines. That was what got me from Star Wars. And I think that has made a lifelong. So I've almost got a phobia of intestines from that. I think. They just freak me out.
It was really gross looking.
Yeah, it was like.
gross.
When I'm thinking back about it now, though, it's like a load of condoms, all tied together. Really, isn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah,
Still would have stunk.
yeah. Yours would have. Yeah.
I'm telling you what, those guys that did the special effects on those, top notch, like stuff that like I still don't think is matched to this day. I mean, all those people have probably done hundreds of movies since then, just because it's different than nowadays, right? Everything nowadays is just computer generated BS, right? Even kind of the prequels to a certain extent, it's like them just acting and there's just a green screen, right? And then they put like a big fountain and waterfall and stuff behind them and stuff. But what those guys were doing, in London in 1975, 1976, just out in back alleys, like rolling little cars, like through like alleyways and stuff. I'm like, that was the Death Star. And it was done like in like a back alley. And like, you don't even think about that stuff because of how good it looks.
Yeah, I think there was. I remember watching something about them inventing a lot of the shots and the techniques for like the Star Cruisers and things, and they kind of switched it around how they did it in terms of. I think they ran a camera over a model rather than a model in front of a camera and things like that generally. But it still looks good.
One of the funniest special effects things, and I don't know, they may have scrubbed this out of the newer versions of it, but if you have like an older copy, in Empire Strikes Back where they're going through that asteroid field, one of the asteroids is actually like a potato because like they just needed stuff to like fill up the scene. And like I think one point somebody tried to like throw a shoe into it, and like somebody threw. There is a potato in there somewhere. I don't know if I don't know if they've scrubbed it out of the newer versions, but I want to be able to go back and find that and screenshot that.
But that was the whole other shoot-off, wasn't it, for George Lucas in terms of, was it ILM, Industrial Light and Music, was it called? Magic,
yeah.
Was it? Yeah, so, and he did, I think he's done, or that studio did loads of special effects going forwards, didn't it, for lots of other films as well. I imagine they did all of Indiana Jones.
ILM to special effects was like the Beatles was to music. Oh, yeah. As far as revolutionising the techniques and getting the most out of the technology that you had at the time. And there is that is one of the downfalls with the... I love the prequels. And I know people slated them when they come out, but I really enjoyed them. But one of the things I didn't like was...
Did you really like how you got into the politics of the...
I like the politics, yeah. I do, yeah. I'm interested in the Trade Federation and what they're doing.
It did have pod racing, to be fair.
Yeah, the pod racing, that's just fluff, the pod racing. It's just fluff for
me.
Yeah. Juveniles like you. I'm interested in the grand, political machinations, the Machiavellian plans, and, and the profound quotes,
What, like,
oh, do you want me, like this one?
So this is how liberty dies. With thunderous applause.
That's when the Emperor, connives for special...
To become the Emperor, you mean?
Well,
he's a leader, isn't he?
Emergency powers, isn't it, Kyle? That was the whole thing.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, he got him to throw out the prior chancellor because he wasn't strong enough, and sure enough, he gets appointed. Then he's like, "Well, thanks for appointing me, but I need more powers. So if you guys could just give me more powers too, and then you know what, this is great, but can we just turn this into me just running it for the rest of my life?" And everyone's like, "Yeah, that's great. Let's do it. Let's do it. There's nothing wrong with that." And and the funny part is, and you see this in our world too, all of those steps where he gained more and more and more power, it was because he was pushing fear on everybody, fear of this trade federation, this separatist alliance, fighting, destroying the republic, and also saying that, listen, this is for the benefit of the republic. This is for our own good, right? Like, that's why we have all these lockdowns and restrictions. It's for your own good. It's so comparable to everything going on now, that everything they do is just to push the people down more and give themselves more power. And it's a repeating cycle through history.
And the sort of the bankers and the space capitalists, the Trade Federation, they don't even figure it out until the double cross when is he Anakin at that time? He's probably Vader, isn't he? When he's sent to execute them, they were just a pawn. Yeah, and at the very end they said, well, as Anakin's about to kill them all, they're like, what are you doing? Like, Darth Sidious or Palpatine, you promised us peace, right? Like, no, you don't realize when you align yourself with that type of person, you're not going to get the better end. Just look at everything that happened in Soviet Russia. They treated the liberals and the politicians and the socialists that aligned with them the same as the dissidents. They lined them all up against the wall and shot them because those kind of people were actually more dangerous because they knew too much. They knew too much about how the game was played, so they had to be taken out as well. And they don't see it happening until it's far too late. And I think everybody else can kind of see it coming, but they're too invested in it because they've been promised this and that and this and that. And you can say the same for Vader, right? He was promised all this power, and he was promised to find out the key between life and death, and promised to save his wife. And he's been led along with all these promises, and they never come to fruition because they're just holding it, dangling it over his head, and you can never jump up and reach it. And they just to use a American football analogy, they keep moving the goalposts, right? They're here and now they're over here and now they're over here, and you can never get the ball through. So it's once again, I think Lucas was way over the target when it came to telling us how politics really were. But putting it in a Star Wars context, I don't think, I think one of the, and I'm calling this kind of the prequel conspiracy, I'm kind of making up this own conspiracy myself, is that I think when the prequels came out, I think a lot of the powers that be, whenever they saw the story he was telling, were like, whoa, he's really hitting it too close to the mark here. We need to kind of make up something else for people to talk about, which is, why when you talk about the prequels to anybody, one of the first things they bring up is Jar Jar Binks, right? Because he's a silly character, this and that. And so a lot of attention is focused on how stupid he was and this and that. But if you think about it, like the story they're telling about the politics is dangerously close to our actual politics, no different than like both the UK and the US version of that House of Cards series, right? Like they employed a lot of similar storylines and ideas from actual politics, and it's so close. It's so close to the mark. It's scary.
Is Boris Johnson or Jar Jar Binks?
Probably, yeah.
I would say so. Yeah.
A useful idiot. I think you nailed it. He's a useful idiot. He's not in control of anything. Yeah. Or Bojo. Why do we call him Bojo the Clown?
Well, exactly. Yeah.
And then the Trade Federation, you can think of all like the Googles and Amazons and all these big corporate business leaders that are going along with all these agendas, but it's gonna bite them in the end. And actually one thing that happened I didn't really realize because they didn't show it in the prequels, but after like what we talked about, after Anakin killed all those Trade Federation leaders, Palpatine basically made all those Trade Federation organizations just part of the government. He took control of all those companies too. So it wasn't just about him wiping out the useful idiots. He also consolidated the control of all of the corporate businesses in the galaxy as well.
Wow. So
you can probably see something very similar in our world happening if things progress as they are.
Where did you find that out from? If it wasn't in the movies?
It was in I think it was in some companion novels, and I go all the time to that. Have you guys been to that Wikipedia website?
Yeah,
it's like it's basically like Star Wars Wikipedia, but talks about all the different events and stuff. And I'll be honest, it's probably more reliable than Wikipedia at this point. You can probably look up real life events on there; it'll make more sense than Wikipedia. But yeah, I just looked up stuff about the Trade Federation to kind of talk about the history of how it got from those people to really being like brought into the fold of the Empire, which is kind of terrifying.
I know some people don't like the prequels, but you have to admit that the way the prequels expanded the universe, that had a massive effect. If you just take the first three films on their own, like you said, Carl, like the first film's your classic hero's journey, space adventure. It's got beginning, middle, and the end, and interestingly, there's some slow bits like in the desert, and with the OTD, with those guys, it's quite slow paced. at times, isn't it? It's not like it's not like the frigging J.J. Abrams abortions that come out now, is it? There has to be a massive explosion every 20 seconds.
To begin with, there's a slow build, isn't there, in the first one?
Yeah, but what I was getting at is that the way the universe was expanded with the three prequels massively, and this is what makes it so immersive for people, isn't it? And such what do you call it? It's almost like escapism, isn't it? Like you're going into this.
This is the whole thing, isn't it, of world building, isn't it? And Star Wars obviously is probably the best one at doing it. But,
there's nothing better, is there, as far as building the universe?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Star Wars. I think Lord of the Rings is another one too that I think really built out a huge, expansive world. I'm big into Harry Potter too, but I don't feel like that world is really that big, other than a handful of places that they kind of just go back to over and over again. But
what about June? June's got potential, surely.
Well, it's still there's a new film coming out soon, isn't there?
Yeah, it could either spark something or not, I guess.
Mm.
I've never gotten into that franchise. Do you guys enjoy it? Do you recommend it?
I've never watched the David Lynch film, and I've never read the book.
I've read some books, but
I've not read the books. But Darren from Grimerica, he absolutely raves about the books.
Okay,
so it's probably
that's a good recommendation there. So I'm going to put that on my list.
I think there's a lot though, and I think that it's not something you're going to just sort of read over a month. Like I think
that's where the potential is, isn't it? Like probably Star Wars. There's so much beyond the films.
Yeah, it's probably like taking on the Bible, isn't it? Read them all in a year if you're lucky. I don't know.
Yeah, and one thing interesting you mentioned about the scenes in the desert being a little bit slow. I think Star Wars, I would say, sets the record for the original Star Wars, the longest time it takes for you to until you actually see the main character of the movie. I think it's like a half hour or something before you even see Luke Skywalker.
Really?
And that's very peculiar in really any movie. Most movies, you see the main character right off the bat, within the first few seconds. But like you said, it's kind of a slow build. So that's a very interesting thing that he weaved in there. And the other really interesting thing I think about the original Star Wars is he bucked that trend of, seeing all the credits at the very beginning of the movie. Yeah. Which, if you go back and watch those now, those movies that have it now, it drives you crazy. Even like kids movies. I'm trying to show my son like a kids movie about like a dog, and like we got to wait through like 10 minutes of credits at the beginning, and he's like falling asleep and running around and not paying attention. I'm like, come on. But he got the Screen Actors Guild or whatever got super pissed at him for doing that, because like, no, you have to have the credits at the beginning. He's like, no, people are in the movie to watch a movie. They really don't care who was the third rig on the sound crew or something like that. The best boy or the gaffer or something like those. They're all important things. Don't get me wrong, but like when people go to a movie, they want to see the movie. If they want to stick around and find out more info at that after the end, feel free. But
it's a strong statement, isn't it? He's saying this is about the story straight off the bat.
Right.
You've come here, like you say, you've come here to see a story.
I always struggled to read it, though. That was the thing. I was like, it's got too small. What's happening? I've not read it, and then everything's been blown up.
I'm always suspicious of people. I think we're a year older than you, Carl. So we're
okay.
And I'm always suspicious of people around our age who don't like Star Wars. I think maybe there's something wrong with them.
Yeah, you would imagine so, wouldn't you?
It always gets me, going back to the first film, the scene on Tatooine where Luke's looking out across the desert
wistfully,
and the two sons are there, and then the sweeping John Williams soundtrack comes in, and it's just like, it's fucking magical, man. It's never to be repeated. And I don't know if it's me just being a soppy fucker.
Yeah.
No, you're right.
Or is it just nostalgia or what? But I just think there's something... that first film and the first three films will never be repeated, as far as...
the other thing as well is that the film industry has changed. So it's not that... I'm pretty sure that he struggled for funding to get Star Wars in the beginning to film it. But to do something like that now, unless you're Christopher Nolan, it just doesn't happen. So you just wouldn't get funding, on that scale to film a film like that, basically.
Why? Was it his first film, Carl?
No, his first film was in 1971. It was called THX 1138.
Yeah.
So and you see that 1138 show a bunch in Star Wars. He kind of throws that in there. But I actually need to go back and rewatch that because it was based off of a student film he made when he was at USC in the late 60s. And that movie is really all about like the totality. It's almost like your 1984 Brave New World, like that kind of totalitarian government where everybody is taught to not have emotion and you have specific jobs and people are very, all very similar, very robotic. And I actually need to go back and rewatch it again because I think in the context of the past few years, I think it's pretty important. I think the message he was trying to say in there. But yeah, so that first film was called THX 1138 in, I think it was 1971. And then 1975, I think he came up with a movie called American Graffiti, which was kind of like, really, if you look at kind of that in Star Wars, it's kind of like a little offshoot, but it was basically just a bunch of kids in California just driving around in cars and, partying and meeting girls and stuff like that. Just basically, I think it was loosely based just off of his life, probably, because that's what he liked to do when he was younger. And then that whole time throughout the 70s, he'd been working on the Star Wars idea and project and, going through multiple drafts and this and that. And, I think...
Was he involved in Howard the Duck as well for a little Marvel segue?
Yeah, he did. I think he did write or direct it. One of those two. That classic.
Yeah, that was one of his
film.
things, wasn't it? After it was basically after. I'm sure that was that not after the final Star Wars film they brought that one out.
It had to be mid '80s. Yeah, probably around there when he was doing that, and the Indiana Jones stuff. It was kind of in there in the midst somehow. He found time to work on that gem.
Yeah, I've never watched it. Have you watched that one?
I've just heard it's supposed to be good. I can't remember.
I've heard American Graffiti is supposed to be good. I've never watched that one.
No, there's only so much time. I'll tell you what. Talking about sort of films imitating conspiracy theory, Kyle, have you recently watched Demolition Man?
No, I haven't, and that's one that I've been hearing a lot about. A lot of good stuff in there, so that's on my list to go back and check out.
Honestly, you could do like a second podcast on Demolition Man. You could do at least 50 podcasts.
I started watching it. I had to turn it off after 20 minutes
because you were freaked out.
Because it was too freaky. Yeah, I'm not even joking. It's wild. It's like
no physical contact. So they greet.
I started making notes. So there's the militarization of the police is the first thing. But anyway, it just goes on and on and on.
But there's such small scenes as well. Like there's a scene where a guy is in a bit like a phone booth and he's talking to a screen. And this screen is giving him like reaffirming comments, telling him he's a good guy and stuff. It's like psychological counseling.
Oh, I do that.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like the profanities laws. So you can't swear. If you swear anywhere, there's a little beep. You've been fined 10 credits for breaking the profanities act.
Like a microaggression and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. The way everything's outlawed, like salt.
Yeah.
You can't eat salt.
Sterile, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a proper like utopian nightmare.
Yeah.
And then you have like the underclass who live underground who are basically living free but in extreme poverty.
And there's no litter though.
No, yeah.
I
know graffiti.
Honestly, Ben, will you stop simping for the New World Order? Right? Just because you want to be dominated by the cabal doesn't mean you have to drag us down with you. Can you not just arrange for someone to give you a good pegging every couple of weeks?
There's probably no climate change either. It's probably a really great society.
Yeah, it's one of these. It looks idyllic on the surface, but the people are trapped. They've no freedom.
They don't know they're trapped, do they? That's the thing.
Well, it's the boiling frog, isn't it? It's done slowly, incrementally, over fucking decades, and there's always a crisis.
Everyone loves a hot tub.
Yeah, or multiple crises where, things are brought in and never... It's like the Patriot Act after 9/11, airport security. Governments bring in temporary measures to respond to a crisis, and they might give some of those powers back, but they always keep a little bit for themselves ready for the next crisis, and then they take a bit more, and, inch by inch, they take a mile.
I have a great analogy of that. I talk about this analogy about, the government taking stuff away and then giving us back a little bit, and we're thankful for it. It's kind of like a huge joke, right? Like, oh, you can do whatever you want now, but now you have to wear a mask. Like, oh, yes, now we can go out and do whatever we want, but now you have to put a stupid thing on your face. So like I use this analogy, whenever I put my son to bed, he always wants me to read him like 10 books, right? So he's like, Daddy, read me 10 stories. I'm like, no, I got stuff to do. Okay. So I'll be like, all right, listen. Okay. I'm going to read you 4 books instead. I'll read you 4 books instead. Yeah. I'm going to read you Dune. Yeah. I'm going to read you all Dune. Yeah. I'll die before I finish it. So I'm like, no, I won't read you 10, but I'll read you 4 books. And then like a minute later, I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to read you 4 books. I'm going to read you 5 books. And then he'll be like, yay, you're reading me 5 books because you set the bar so low. So then you add a little bit on top, and people are conditioned to like that, even though 5 is still half of 10 of where you should be. They always say, like, you love your slavery, or like the you'll own nothing and be happy about it. Mm-hmm. It's just funny how the government tricks people into thinking that what they've given them is so nice and benevolent, but they've taken so much else away that it's really not an increase. It's still the same slavery, just a slightly better level, I guess.
Yeah, the phrase for that is under promise, over deliver.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah.
Isn't that a management term?
Sure is.
Yeah. If you want to climb up the greasy pole. I don't know. I don't get it. What do you make?
And about the crises, in Attack of the Clones, the second movie in the prequels, they talk about this a lot more in like the novel, but there's something they're putting through the Senate called the Military Creation Act. I'm like, Military Creation Act? What the hell is this? Star Wars? What are we talking about here? But it's basically saying like, hey, we need to create an army to fight this separatist movement. And well, you know what? The Senate is too slow to react. So that's where, using that as the crisis, that's where the executive powers came in, because he said, listen, if you guys just grant me executive powers, I can push this Creation Act through so we can get the army we need to help save our republic. Right. So once again, for your benefit, but really just for his benefit, Yeah,
it's the classic sort of tyrant, isn't it? Tyrant move. Mm-hmm. I was going to say it's inevitable, but I don't want to put that out there.
Power seems to be corrupting. What was the name of the emperor? Was it not an emperor? The guy in the Roman Republic?
Sulla.
Yeah, that walked away.
Yeah, it takes someone of immense character to have ultimate power and then hand it back. And it's a special case when it does occur, like Sulla, someone who had the world at his feet, and then just decided to retire, walk into the forum amongst the plebs urbanus.
Yeah.
And say, right, I'm retiring. I'm going to the countryside and I'm going to die of liver disease 6 months later.
That's what
Is that like David Cameron?
Wanked himself to death.
Wanked himself to death.
I didn't say wank himself to death. Drank himself to death.
Yeah.
But then get involved in a corrupt hedge fund, was it, or something? Greensill, allegedly.
That's the one.
Oh, that's steady.
Well, it's like what Palpatine was talking about with, how his master, Palpatine's master, learned all the secrets to life and death. And then he told Anakin, he's like, Anakin's like, well, what happened to this guy? He's like, well, in the end, the only thing he was afraid of was losing his power. So, he spent his whole life trying to gain this knowledge and power and using all his effort to stay in power. That's what they want to do. They want to stay in power. And, sure enough, but in the story goes, Palpatine killed him to learn all the secrets, so you try to stay in power and use all these tools to stay in power. But, in the end, sometimes it works out. Sometimes, it doesn't. So we'll kind of see how it goes in this world we're living in. Yeah. Who knows?
Did I ever tell you the story of Darth Plagueis the Wise?
It's a terrible accent, isn't it?
It's not too bad. I think I understand.
It was pretty good. Pretty good.
Oh, don't kill me.
That sounds nothing like him. I'll have to work on my Palpatine.
What did you make of his reappearance then in the last sequel?
Oh boy. Well, that's something I need to go back through. They came out with novels. They come out with novels for each of the movies that come out. I want to actually read through those sequel ones and see if there's some nuggets in there that make more sense, because in my mind, it's not a cohesive story. Disney botched the whole thing. Let's be honest. Disney botched the whole thing. They tried to treat it like Marvel. that they can just pump out Star Wars content like a Marvel. But it's not. Marvel movies are very formulaic. Every one of and I enjoy them. Nothing wrong with the Marvel movies. I enjoy them, but they're pretty much all the same. They follow the same kind of template. There's like a battle at the beginning. They kind of gather strength, and there's a big battle at the end. Like that's every single one of those movies, in the entire franchise. And Star Wars doesn't really work that way. Star Wars has more of a mythological, like we talked about, Greek mythology, Roman mythology, Egyptian mythology, all religious mythology. It has all that stuff built in. So you can't just crank that out in a writer's room in, 5 to 6 months and then be done with it and, go from there. I mean, they put out 5 movies in 5 years. I mean, George Lucas put out 3 movies in like 9 years, right? Like he because he could do it himself, right? He didn't have a big box office, motion picture studio behind him, that had to appease their stockholders, and crank this stuff out. And that was the biggest problem with Disney is they had all these stockholders that wanted an immediate return on the investment they made of that, $4 billion that they gave Lucas, that they needed. They thought they needed to crank these out in record time. And I'm sure they made their money back for sure, but I think they've hurt the fan base by that approach also.
Well, that was what I was going to say. I was just wondering if there's a different kind of expectation in terms of the amount and frequency of Star Wars films, simply because originally, there was those first 3. I think, was it 77? The first one, was it 77 or 78?
Yes, 77 and then 80 and then 83.
Yes.
And then the prequel, same thing, 99, 2002 and 2005. So you see that 3-year gap in all those films.
But then there's like a big chunk as well, isn't there, in between those two, obviously, where he allegedly was saying, wasn't it, it was always there. It was always a 9-part story or whatever, but he was waiting for the technology to catch up, wasn't he? So he could and make his world real or whatever.
And it's not just that. In between the new 3 films, we also had like Rogue One and Solo and
Well, that's what I was going to. The other thing I was going to say. So they were like pumping it out, and I think what they've done now is they've launched Disney Plus, haven't they? And I think that they're thinking that they can kind of fill that gap now with their TV shows. So there's
Mandalorian.
The Mandalorian, isn't there? There's been 2 of those, and then. I'm quite looking forward to the Obi-Wan one.
Hello there.
That one's going to be great. The Boba Fett one.
Is there a Boba Fett one as well? Right. Okay.
Coming out later this year. Yeah. Next few months, I think. So that'll be pretty cool. Yeah. I think they've basically gone away from the movies at this point in saying that maybe that's not their approach anymore, because, they had some stuff in pre-production. They were actually working with the creators or the showrunners of Game of Thrones for a while, making a new Star Wars trilogy. But I think maybe they saw how the last few seasons of that ended, and they were kind of like, let's sorry guys, we're not taking your calls anymore.
So you saying? So have you heard of that? They're not doing that anymore.
Yeah, they basically those guys aren't on the payroll ananymore. They abandoned those.
Oh
those
my god,
ideas.
It's like Anakin all over again. So Benioff and Vice, they trashed Game of Thrones and rushed out the last 3 seasons so they could jump into Star Wars.
Oh, and they've
now because they made they killed Padme. They fucking killed Padme.
They did, didn't they? They shot the bed.
Serves them right. They either do a good job or don't. They had their eye on a different prize.
And they were going to make another trilogy with Rian Johnson, who made the Last Jedi film. And like, come on, don't. Please don't. I know there's people that love it, but there's equally people that hate it. So just don't do it.
He tried so hard, he died.
Oh, yeah, Luke. I can't believe they treated Luke like that.
No, it was bad, wasn't it? But
well, he basically had a flowchart like, hey, what do people want? Oh, let's go this way. What do people want? Let's go this way.
Yeah,
what do people want? Let's go like, you can do that a few times, but if you do that on every single thing in the movie, it gets ridiculous. And I know there's some good stuff in that movie. I won't completely shit on it altogether, but just it was so different. And plus it was so rushed. Like we said, it was so rushed. I mean, they were working on that before the Force Awakens even came out. So they didn't even have time to digest what the reaction to that first film was. They already had the second film already in the can, ready to drop, and it's a completely different film stylistically, script wise, everything, which is why I think now people are looking favorably on the prequels, because for all its flaws, it actually had a cohesive story that one person was telling from the start to the end. Now with the Disney one, I mean, they fired like 10 to 15 different directors and writers and stuff throughout the whole sequel process that the story was so convoluted. I mean, then at the end, kind of getting back to your question a few minutes ago, like, Palpatine, he came back somehow. Like, that's like a line. That's a line in the. How is that a line? That's a line in the movie. Somebody wrote that. Somebody got paid to write that. Palpatine came back somehow.
I can't.
But I will say it kind of. The only thing I'll say about it is that with Palpatine coming back, it does, I think, give credence to what he told you about the Darth Plagueis thing, how he killed his master and learned the keys to immortality. So from that aspect, maybe he was able to learn something to fight death somehow. I mean, like the story of how it actually happened in like the novel is really weird and bizarre, but I also think it kind of, the biggest criticism of it is it weakens the whole Darth Vader redemption story, right? Like he helps save the universe. His son was willing to sacrifice himself, so then he fought the Emperor and killed the Emperor, and hey, everything is saved. But if the Emperor's not really dead, like I don't know, does that weaken the story? Maybe, but
absolutely, it makes a mockery of Vader, the redemption story of Vader chucking the Emperor down the port.
But the other thing, about that is that you never actually see him die. He's just flows down the thing, doesn't he?
Yeah, no, but that's not the point. The point is that through the first 6 films, it's all about Anakin. The chosen one who's going to bring balance to the Force, and Empire and Return of the Jedi ends with him getting rid of the Emperor and fulfilling the prophecy. And then, like Cal said, well, he comes back. It's like, well, what was the point? Because you have to have a strong female character come and do it properly, I guess.
Is he a clone?
There's too much politics in it for me.
Is he cloned?
Yeah, I think he was.
I think there's something about cloning, isn't there?
There's some weird story how like they took his body that fell at the bottom of that chamber and like force pushed it across the galaxy or something, kind of like what you saw Luke do in The Last Jedi, where he like force projected himself somewhere else. So it's like they pushed his Force essence somewhere else, and just explain the amount of mental gymnastics I'm having to do just to explain it. It makes it sound even more ridiculous that they pushed it across the galaxy to this planet where all his sycophants were there waiting for him in this weird audience chamber in their black robes, just going like, ugh. Like I have no idea what I have no idea what was going on there. But they try to say that it was not necessarily him, or it was his vessel of a body, but it was I don't even. It hurts me to even try to come up with an explanation for him.
There's
because
absolutely all sorts, isn't there? I mean, it's like there was a big in the run up to, I think, the second new film coming out. There was all this talk about the Knights of Ren.
Yeah,
Kylo Ren's got this gang of fucking badasses and. Nothing, no story there, and then they just get dispatched by a super mega woman, or was it Kylo?
Kylo Ren.
Kylo did it.
Yeah.
It was so funny in Rise of Skywalker. The only time you see those Knights of Ren is when they're chasing down Rey and all this team, and they're all like standing on this big like mountain peak. They're all just like standing here. It looks like they're filming like a Swedish like heavy metal music video or something. Like I don't know. They're just like with all these weapons and stuff. Like, well, and that was it. They didn't even say a word. You have no idea who these people are. Like, yeah, they and the whole Captain Phasma,
that was awful as well.
Chick from the first one, there was a lot more story to tell about her and what her purpose was, but they just kind of dispatched her as well.
Nothing to that either, was there?
Maybe she'll get her own TV show.
Yeah,
right. Like I don't know why they even brought her in to do that if they were just not going, made it a big nothing.
I think it was because it was a woman as well, wasn't it? That was the other thing, that it was a woman or a female baddie, I suppose. Because has there been a female baddie except for like maybe someone who whispers in Jabba the Hutt's ear? And that's it, isn't it? I suppose.
I don't know that there has. No, there hasn't been really a female,
isn't it? Yeah.
I think there was an element of selling a distinct Stormtrooper toy as well. The chrome armor.
Absolutely.
I think there's an element of that even in the original films, the commercialization. But I think when Disney get a hold of it, that gets amplified.
Yeah, but I think the other thing as well is...
says me, surrounded by Star Wars memorabilia.
It's not so much that it was like they picked a woman to do it, but if you're going to pick someone and make a character, then, make it part of the story properly, give it a bit of
Yeah, there wasn't enough. There wasn't enough character development for any of them. There was too many characters.
Yeah.
I mean, what really annoyed me probably the most, is that they didn't use the opportunity to get the main characters on screen one last time together. You know, Luke and Han and Leia and Chewie.
Right.
A reunion scene would have created a lot of goodwill, I would say, among old school Star Wars fans like us. It would have been a nostalgia hit,
right
here, you know. And it's like, no, fuck you. No, we're going we're not interested in you guys who've been buying our shit for 30 years.
New blood.
Yeah,
I do think.
Yeah, it was a whole misdirect. You know, kind of going back to Game of Thrones. You know, the whole point of the Game of Thrones series is like there's this family that's together at the beginning, and then they all go their separate ways, and they really never all come back together. So it's almost like they wanted to use that template, but I don't think it worked because we needed to see that at least briefly. You know, I think that would have done a whole lot. Maybe not the entire movie with like, hey, let's go back and get an adventure here. Come on, kid, let's go. But just like a few little things would have been great. I mean, Luke didn't even get to interact with Han, one time. Yeah. You know, the guy who saved his skin in the original Star Wars and a zillion other times. You know, you didn't get one of those scenes like, hey, like now I owe you again for saving your life. No, I owe you. No, I owe you again. Like something silly like that would have been cool to have in there. Yeah.
So yours, kid. Let's blow this thing. Go home. Fucking great.
I think they kind of killing him off, but I believe that if you believe what you read, then that was his decision, wasn't he? He said he would come back for one film and a massive payday if that was it.
Yeah,
basically,
weed's expensive.
Yeah, if you kill me off, basically.
For some reason he always liked his Indiana Jones character more than Han Solo, which I personally don't believe that. Maybe just because I like Star Wars more, but I mean, he's still trying to do another Indiana Jones movie. Like, please stop. Just I'm too old.
Yeah,
but
isn't he? I think apparently this is the last one. It's going to have some kind of denouement in the film.
Oh God! But in in Return of the Jedi, he actually, why he one of the reasons, like the in universe reasons they put him in Carbonite was because they really didn't know if he was going to sign on for the next film.
Oh, right.
So they kind of could put him on ice. So on the final film, they could literally put him on ice. So if he didn't want to fully sign on for the third movie, what they would do was they would pay him just to come back in a cameo and basically flip the entire sequence of the movie. So the movie would have they would have first done all the stuff on Endor fighting against the Death Star. And then at the very end, almost kind of like a post-credit sequence, that was when they would go to Jabba's palace and rescue him. And then it would just end with that.
Right,
and just have him on the screen for a few brief seconds. But that kind of sounds weird in retrospect. Yeah. But that's what their plan was. If he wouldn't have signed on for the full movie, they would have paid him just to come back to do a quick cameo. But
is that because he'd already signed for Indy before Empire Strikes Back? So he already had them.
Probably, but he was the only one of him and Carrie Fisher, Mark Hamill. Carrie Fisher, Mark Hamill, they signed on for the entire trilogy right after the first movie was over. They signed on for everything, but because Harrison Ford's career was picking up a lot more than theirs, he wasn't willing to make that long-term commitment. So he was his contract was just on a movie by movie basis, where theirs was just like, they're just like, hey, it's great, I'm working, let's do it. They were happy to get anything.
Yeah, he's kind of well known for being quite cantankerous, isn't he? And for interviews and making decisions about his career. And I think sometimes he's a little bit beleaguered by the whole kind of Star Wars thing, and it's a bit of a
kick in the nuts.
Yeah, basically. But if you think, for me anyway, my childhood, Han Solo and Indiana Jones, probably like the two most beloved characters from my childhood, I would say. So, well done, Harrison. From me to you.
Yeah, he's an absolute legend. And, those franchises are sort of not formulaic. They're formational to our...
Foundational?
Foundational, yeah. I mean, they're so ingrained in our culture, aren't they? From particularly in the 80s. I mean, I remember, I was one of my first memories is watching the first Star Wars on Christmas Day when I was about 3 or 4 years old.
Jesus.
And seeing the film, one of the opening scenes where the rebel cruiser that's on a diplomatic mission to Alderaan gets invaded, and you just see the smoke clear, and then Darth Vader walks through, and it's like,
wow,
holy shit, you know.
Yeah. I mean, I think the other thing as well, I think watching a film then is very much a different experience. It would have been a different experience in the 80s than it is now, where you can just kind of stream it. I believe you can stream stuff illegally on the internet like any time, but or you can, like, you know, or you just switch Netflix on and there's a load of films just right there. But you know, if you're at home with your VHS or your Betamax, you would have had to go to a shop because you probably wouldn't have owned it, rented it if they had it in, then played it. So it's a bit more an event. And then even more so, it was about 3 or 4 years before films that were released in the cinema had lost their value before they went on television.
That's right. Yeah, it used in the UK anyway. It used to be like 4 years, didn't it, before a theatrical release would be played on terrestrial TV.
So they could afford it after about 4 years, and then like
even like a year or two before it got on like an actual video release too, right? I mean, nowadays it's like instant, but back then it was like maybe up to a year. You know, to get it.
Well, they've been in the theatres for ages, and now films are in for a couple of weeks, 3 weeks.
And you make your money, and if it's not making money, it's out, isn't it? Again, to be released digitally or whatever to scrape some of it back.
I mean, the whole market's changed, isn't it? Going to, I don't know if it's the same in the US, but going to the cinema in the UK is quite expensive compared to other night outs you might have or whatever. I mean, you're talking, what, for a family?
Well, this is the other thing as well, is there's different charges for films now. So there's blockbuster films, and they have like, it's like an extra couple of pounds to go and see a blockbuster film. So, you know, it might be, if it was a family, you're probably talking like 50 quid, aren't you? With like food and stuff as well.
Yeah, so what would that be, about 80 bucks?
And for a while, they tried to push that, you know, this is like the 3D movie, and like I never got into that, because for one, I already got glasses. What am I going to wear 2 pairs of glasses in the movie? Like a real freaking idiot. And plus it was like, you know, 15, 20 bucks, like it's like 3 times more than a normal ticket. Like, it's like, no, I'm watching like Shrek in 3D. Like this is pointless.
Yeah, that was really, Avatar, wasn't it?
Just adding.
Yeah, I remember going to seeing, I got caught up in the hype for Avatar, and I went to go and see it, and I was a bit nonplussed by it, to be honest with you. I don't think it's that great, to be honest with you, the film, and also the effects. It was just like, I think one moment there was like something floating in front of my eyes, and then the rest of it was just like pointless. There
is like a psychological condition that people got after watching Avatar. Like it was like a withdrawal condition. Wow. They were so
like the film.
There's like an ecological aspect to Avatar, you know, where they kill the tree. It's like the life tree or whatever it is. And it was so distressing for people. And people, after seeing that film, it's a long film, and after being immersed in that and going back to their daily lives, they started getting depressed because they wanted to live on the fucking planet with unobtainium in. This is a real I can't believe you've not heard it.
I'm not blue. I wanted to be blue.
Exactly. You know, people are damaged.
I've never seen it. I've never seen Avatar for some reason. I never got around to doing it just because it was such like a hype machine, right? Like when that came out, they were talking about this is like the greatest movie ever, and then it was like, oh, it's beat out Star Wars as the #1 box office movie. I'm like, no, fuck you. I'm not going to watch you just because of that. You're throwing that in your article. You're done. You're dead to me. Now they're making like 5. They're making like 5 more.
Well, that's what I was just about to say. He's gone away for however many. It's been nearly a decade to make 5 more films of it.
He's doing underwater research, isn't he? He's like modern Jacques Cousteau.
That's another thing he's well into, isn't it? Because it did
Titanic.
Well, he did Titanic, but what was the one? The Abyss was one of his films as well, and he's into all that underwater kind of shit. He has a submarine, doesn't he, James Cameron? But personally, I think he should just stick to making Terminator films because they're great. His first 2,
and Aliens. I would say Aliens is my favourite Cameron film. I would say
even Terminator 2.
If I don't care if there's 10 minutes. What? Get away from her, you bitch! Come on, Aliens. I'm taking Aliens over T2.
No, you're just sick.
Game over, man. Game over. God. Well, we'll agree to
I
disagree.
can't believe you think Aliens is better than Terminator 2.
I mean,
This is like 33 years of friendship down the fucking pan.
all right. I'll give you that. It's a bit more lowbrow than T2, but as far as a blockbuster sci-fi film, I think Aliens is up there with Star Wars as far as sci-fi films go. Sorry,
Whoa.
it's not as good, but
If you don't think Aliens is better than Terminator 2, it's because you're a sexist and hate females in lead roles. So now we know.
Hang on a minute. Whoa. There is a female in a lead role in Terminator.
Oh, yeah.
Actually.
Okay.
How much of a sexist are you that you get drawn to the giant muscly man? The muscly man robot, you perv.
talking about female leads, something we haven't touched on that we should do quickly. I would like your opinion on Rogue One.
Yeah.
What do you think of Rogue One, Kyle?
I think that's honestly my favorite of the newer Star Wars movies, just because.
Look at his face.
Because he speaks the truth.
Yeah, he's right.
For one, it was a group of characters that you had no foreknowledge of. You had no preconceived notions about who these characters were or what they were going to do, and it's a perfect companion directly to A New Hope. Like you can watch those back to back, and it's within like a few minutes in between of that shuttle taking off that the movie takes place in. And I personally love, maybe I'm just morbid, I love movies where everybody dies in the end. I just think I think it's so cool. Like,
Yeah, it's tragedy again, isn't it?
One of my favorite movies was have you guys ever seen the movie Reservoir Dogs? Quentin Tarantino, one of his first movies. Mm-hmm. Great movie, right? And they all turn the guns on each other and shoot everybody. And it's
spoilers.
It's great. Maybe, yeah. Spoiler from 1991 if you haven't seen it yet. Sorry. But yeah, I think the story was great. I think they had her in that lead role, and I thought she was great. The whole idea of how the Death Star was created, and you actually saw all the machinations behind the scenes of all the Imperial officers trying to like one up each other, right? And then the guy was trying to like one up Darth Vader, and he's just like, "No, I'm just going to choke you. You're an idiot." So I thought all that was really cool. And going back to the idea of like the useful idiot, how these Imperials, well, Krennic, the main Imperial in the movie, he's the one that ends up getting the new one of the Death Star demo blast right through his face. At the end of the movie, right? Like he had been the one that helped to get this thing up and running, and they were willing to just waste him and all the other Imperials on the ground just to destroy this potential facility that had the Death Star plans and stuff. So they were willing to do whatever it took. And I mean, I thought it was great. I mean, I thought what they did with the CGI with bringing Peter Cushing back, I thought that was incredible.
Yeah.
The Princess Leia one, I don't know. That one was a little iffy, but the Peter Cushing one was incredible. So I thought they did a really great job with that movie.
I nearly jizzed my pants. The scene at the end of the movie where they're trying to transfer the plans from one rebel to another, and Darth Vader's coming in, guns blazing, throwing people across the room, force choking, throwing people onto his saber. It's like,
I believe that film, like similarly like you were saying, was rewritten numerous times.
Oh yeah,
and Darth Vader wasn't even supposed to be in it at one point, I don't think. And I think it was brought into
they basically spent like 2 movies worth of budget on that movie.
Yeah,
just because
I remember.
What I heard behind the scenes was that what Disney wanted was a really gritty like war movie. Like think about like Apocalypse Now or something like about the Vietnam War or something like really really down and dirty and like almost kind of depressing, and that's what they turned into Disney. They're like, well, actually, we don't actually want this. And they're like, well, what the hell? What do we do now? So they hired a new director and added a bunch of stuff. And they added. I think they added a lot of humor and stuff in too, which made it kind of, because Force Awakens had a lot of good humor, so they added some humor elements into it, and then they added the Darth Vader scenes, I think, after the fact, which were incredible. I mean, and then I'll tell you what, seeing his like lair on Mustafar on the lava planet, his cool pyramid kind of area, and that was pretty sweet, but also kind of like messed up, right? Like, hey, go live here. Remember where you got your arms and legs chopped off? Just go live here for a while.
And it came out to like, there was like no fanfare. It just sort of appeared. There was
secret release, was it?
Yeah, there was very little hype, whereas the main 3 sequels were hyped to fuck, weren't they? You know, all over YouTube and social media. Where Rogue One just sort of appeared. Yeah, and it's like, oh, there's a new Star Wars film.
The one funny thing about it too is that I think one of the most emotionally charged scenes to me was, and maybe it says something about humanity, but like whenever their droid companion got killed, like that, like had more emotional punch to me than like some of the other human characters getting killed. I'm like, man, as a society, we're messed up if we're feeling more for robots getting killed than people. I mean, something is really, really wrong here.
And then K2SO4 is that
K2SO,
potassium
sulfate.
sulfate?
Yeah, got him back here in the background. I don't know if you can see him against the wall here.
Yeah, there he is.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he was. Yeah, he was funny, wasn't he?
Yeah.
In it.
Yeah, really funny. Really funny. Dude.
The other thing, the last one then, to ask you about is the Solo movie. What do you make of the Solo movie?
You know, that's one that I didn't really like have a great time watching it. So it's not one I really go back and watch. I mean, I'm sure there's some good stuff in there, but I just didn't. It didn't hit me. It didn't hit me right. Just something about it didn't seem like Star Wars. It just seemed like your run of the mill like heist movie, right? You could have put any number of characters in there, and it would have been the same thing, right? There's a double cross and a triple cross, and they go rob the bank or they go rob the train, or you can put it in any kind of template, like a Western, like a mobster, like all these kinds. You can just, it didn't really seem, I think they just slotted that kind of heist movie into the Star Wars setting.
Fit at all. I mean, recently, my wife had never seen Star Wars all the way through before recently, and we'd watched everything in chronological order in the last couple of months or so. And Solo just kind of
jarring.
It was very like meh.
Yeah, I remember it being a bit. It didn't really evoke anything in me.
I liked the fact that they showed the sort of origins of Han and Chewie's relationship. That was a nice touch. But I'm sort of with you, really. I didn't think it was all that at all.
No, I think at the end, does Darth Maul turn up as Darth Maul Spider?
Oh, yeah. Is that the film that's in?
Yeah, at the end.
Yeah. So I think what they were trying to do was, and that's another one, the Darth Maul thing. You know, we talked about earlier about Palpatine, dying and then coming back. And, Darth Maul, we see him getting cut in half. And then they brought Darth Maul back in like the Clone Wars animated series, which was actually pretty cool, but still kind of the same thing, right? Like that was Obi-Wan's rite of passage to become a Jedi Knight, was killing a Sith Lord. Like nobody had been able to do that in a long time, but he didn't really even get that. So he's a fraud. He's a fraud. Obi-Wan, I'm calling you out right now. You ain't shit. No, I love Obi-Wan. He's awesome.
Sith Lords are our specialty.
Right. Oh, well, he didn't die.
Oh shit. Hello there.
Because he gets his ass kicked by Dooku 2 times in a row. So like, how good are you?
I'm looking forward to the new series, though.
Yeah, I think that. Yeah. Well, that's the other thing I was going to mention as well was the Alderaan series with the guy. Is he Diego Luna? Is that his name? Who's in Rogue One?
In Rogue One, Cassian Andor. Yeah.
So he's got his own. Is it called Alderaan, the TV show? But anyway, he's got his own show. I think that's the next one that's coming out. I think that might be wrong, actually.
There's like 35 Star Wars series coming out. So there's the Cassian Andor one. I think they're making a Lando one with the guy from that Solo movie, which might be pretty cool. Then there's the Boba Fett. There's the Mandalorian. There's like 5 or 6 or 7 that they have in the works there. But like,
come on, Jar Jar Binks origin story.
Back to the thing about Darth Maul, how he showed up at the end of Solo there. I think they were really trying to bring that off into like a franchise on its own. Like, because he was at that point, since he wasn't dead, he was ruling like the criminal underworld and stuff. So you were almost going to see something cool, like some underworld type stuff there. But I think that never ended up happening because Solo came out right on the heels of The Last Jedi, which everybody hated, or a lot of people hated. So when Solo came out, the box office numbers were trash just because people had such a bad taste in their mouth. So Solo never really got a chance to stand up on its own and turn into other sequels or spawn other things from there. Because everybody had that aftertaste from The Last Jedi. So it was kind of unfortunate timing. And maybe I'm putting some of that on that movie as well. So maybe I need to go back and reconsider it a little bit more. But it just didn't seem like there was a lot of meat on the bones there that really added anything to his character.
No, I know what you mean. Yeah. there's a definite risk of fatigue, I think, in the future with all these series. But I'm going to look forward to Obi-Wan. That's my takeaway. But.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, I think that would be. Hopefully, that would be good because they've got everybody coming back, haven't they? And Anakin's coming back. I can't remember his name. What's his name? The awful actor.
Oh, Hayden Christensen.
Hayden Christensen.
What have I done?
Yeah, I know. Yeah. So yeah, and the other thing as well was what's it called? The Mandalorian was ace. The first 3 episodes, and then that was a bit sort of. Oof, can I watch this? And I still did.
That's how they get you. Exactly, that's how they suck you in. Look, we've blown past an hour already. We're going to have to go.
Oh, yeah.
All right, Eavesdroppers. Anyway, all the links will be in the show notes. Check out Conspiracy in the Force, the podcast. And we're going to, us and Carl, we're going to start, we're just going to go offline now and start comparing Star Wars merchandise, I think.
Yeah,
is that the plan for the rest of the night, Kyle?
All right. No, not too much. Just hanging around here trying to hide away in my basement with my mask on, like a good American.
Nice.
Cool. Right, well, stay in the line while we play ourselves out. It's been great fun, this. We could talk about Star Wars all night, you know. But...
Cheers, Kyle.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Okay. Cheers. Check out the links in the show notes. Catch you on the flip side. May the Force be with you.
And we're back.
The dwarf, the cripple, and the mother of madness.
Hello there.
That was our chat with Kyle from Conspiracy in the Force. That was good fun, that.
Yes.